Hi, everyone. We're finally done with our long 3 days of sustainable finance, back to back panels and one on ones on climate risk, venture capital, green bonds, everything that you could think of. And it was all done by Paul. He moderated every session. And what?
Well, I was laughing before we jumped on here. I was chatting with an old friend of mine, and he asked me the same question about how I got through it. And I said, "You do appreciate that I have one basic skill, and that's talking. So if I can't talk for 5 or 6 hours straight, nobody can. So that's how
you didn't lose your voice this time either, which was quite amazing. But I know there's a lot of content to cover and so many incredible points and just like perspective shared, debate. And I don't know, cooperation.
It's hard to know where to start. I think if I'm going to have sort of a couple of observations that sort of very telling, let's get the elephant out of the room. This shit's so complex. It's still, the data sucks. The regulators don't talk to each other. Manulife, the Canadian life insurance company, was telling us that they have 10 regulatory bodies and frameworks that they have to report to in regarding to sustainability. They're not communicating. It's a mess. And so the level of complexity of this topic is just utterly huge. Second observation is the amount of what I'll call it fintech. I won't call it fintech. I'll call it financial innovation. We'll call it that. Around linking creditworthiness and bond payments and even deposits at banks for companies, linking them and linking the amount paid to sustainability benchmarks. So literally, there's sustainable linked loans that the Bank of Montreal has been issuing to clients that if they reduce their Scope 3 emissions by X, then they will pay less of a coupon on this bond or this loan, or the credit charged on a derivative transaction might be lower, or at the simplest level, will pay you more interest in your checking account. Stuff like that, which I found fascinating. On top of that is the amount of engineering that's going on around things like loan guarantee programs. One of the coolest ones was a smallish company, about 250 million euros, a project financer called Solus that we interviewed. And they work with the European Investment Bank doing loan guarantees, right? And what these loan guarantees effectively do is allow small to mid-sized companies to improve their energy efficiencies by installing LED lights and solar panels and batteries and the like, and basically helping to make their buildings and offices and factories and industrial plots much more energy efficient. And these loans are guaranteed by by numerous European programs, and you can find similar programs at the Department of Energy and all this sort of stuff. And it's all about how do you fast track energy efficiency. Day one was the usual. I shouldn't say this, but the VC stuff's always it's the same really interesting stuff, right? So we had great panels on it. The panel with Taryn Gallery and Sasha Brown on ag sciences was really interesting. Things like the use of CRISPR and data science to sort of accelerate different types of products. This whole thing about genetically modified had really negative connotations for the longest time, and now it's been thought of in a true nutritional sense. And so there's that sort of thing. Everyone, look up a sumo mandarin. A sumo mandarin is a mandarin which is about that big, that tastes and peels like a mandarin. It's apparently amazing. So there's all those sort of things. I mean, Sarah Chamberlain from Energy Foundry, which is a Chicago company that does batteries, and she referred to herself as the battery lady, and the battery lady was really cool. She talked about just next generation batteries in terms of using things like zinc and other metals to replace lithium and these sorts of things, which was really cool. And then the last day was really about sort of transitions in the asset management business, whether it's around ETF product. Stephanie Kelly from Red Wheel they put together a unit within Red Wheel called Green Wheel, which is all about sustainability research and the like. We talked about things like Scope 4 emissions, which are basically the modeling. It's the modeling of emissions abated and emissions that have been. So if I implement this technology, my Scope 3 is going to go from A to B. That's your Scope 4 emissions, and that's really important when thinking about where to invest capital and the like. You want to be investing in companies that are reducing their Scope 3, and then to get it completely nerdy on the asset management business model was Guido Moret of the PwC, who went through the entirety of a rethink on how asset management firms should rethink their structuring, given the demands and complexities around sustainability and climate demands for sustainable assets, for measuring impact properly and the like. McKenna, it was a very cool time. I mean, we don't do a lot of ESG type things here, but I think we looked at this through the lens of, financing is going this way, right? So if we want to invest this, find the $3 to $4 trillion a year, like what David Carlin from the UN told us in our first panel on all of this is needed. These are the hoops that people are going to jump through, and it's going to be lots of benefits to it. There's going to be lots of problems with it. So I think the 3 days sort of addressed all of those sorts of issues.
Absolutely. And obviously sustainable finance just as a topic could go anywhere, right? Like everything is sustainable finance. So I think we did get a good job about covering the areas that are of concern, especially now with the IRA and everything that I know that got brought up in almost every conversation, since it is such a, turn of events. When you mentioned the complexity of everything, and that was one of your takeaways, you are really well versed in sustainable finance as it is. It's been part of your whole life. Is there kind of was that a lot different from what you thought as far as the complexity?
I learned a lot. I get, as you and I joke a lot, I got the best job in the world. I get taught things by really smart people every day. And I think that the whole issue of I knew it was there, but the linking of sustainability objectives to the cost of funding, right? Mm-hmm. Embedding them in the covenants of bonds and loans, and effectively having where in the negative side of things, companies defaulting on, they may be making their payments, but they default on those bonds if they don't meet their sustainability targets. But let's look at that through the positive lens of, they get a haircut on the amount they pay if they get their Scope 3 down. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's real. That's true. That's a true financial incentive for companies to do better. And I thought that was really intriguing. But the one thing which, with all this sort of thing, that always gets me a little disappointed is that regulation. And I found this across financial services for the last 10 plus years. Really 15 years since the crisis. Is that all this regulation is designed to stop big banks getting bigger and all this sort of stuff. And the problem is that the levels of complexity are so intense that it's only big organizations can pay for the lawyers and compliance officers and analysts to do this properly, right? So small companies really struggle with this sort of thing because it's only BlackRock and PIMCO and Vanguard and these sort of organizations who can afford to have the armies of lawyers and regulatory advisors to do this stuff properly. If you're a small, starting an asset management firm with this stuff now, it'd be next to impossible given the levels of complexity.
100%. And just the distribution of what every company is liable for does has some improvement there. Sure. Well, we do have a lot more content coming up. We have mobility this month. So everyone will have all of our videos up on the site next week with the edited clips, all of that. And Paul, do you want to say a sentence or two on the report that you'll be putting together?
Yeah. So we'll be putting together a bunch of reports on the sustainable finance events. We'll be trying to put them out. We'll probably put them out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because we don't want to overload everybody. So we'll drip feed those out over a few weeks. And it'll be sort of my synopsis of what went on with the panel. We'll put some charts and graphs in the presentations. And just it's sort of our way of just, another medium to be able to absorb all this for those of you for the 3 or 4 of you out there who actually like to read still, we're going to provide you with that thread.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, thanks everyone, and email us if you have any questions or you didn't get a question, answered during the panel. I know we had a bunch coming in, so feel free to send those over and Paul will answer them himself or someone else.
For sure. And as you can see from the sunshine, McKenna's currently in Portugal. I love our new backgrounds. It's nothing compared to the background she's working from this cute little farmhouse somewhere in the hills in Portugal. Have a great time and have fun with Katia this weekend.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.